Hello YouTube. We're going to talk Conor McGregor's fighting strategy, and did he get exposed in the Nate Diaz fight? So since he lost to Nate Diaz, everybody in mixed martial arts has really sat back and analyzed, has been analyzing Conor McGregor. And I think they were before, but there was a lot of hype around Conor McGregor. Now look at, for good reason. I mean, I'm not hating on Conor McGregor. We're just talking the facts here and what's Conor going to do. He's probably going to have to make some changes to his game. He's going to have to learn a few new tricks because Conor McGregor's fight strategy, up until fighting Nate Diaz, I mean, he had a couple losses in his, on his record, but they were early in his career, and he was basically just on a tear, just destroying everybody. I mean, it was almost as if he was an undefeated fighter, because nobody could really visualize like currently, beating the guy. Even when he got submitted, back in the day, everybody's pretty much assuming that his submission defense is much better and that his ground game is better, and actually spent a lot of time on the ground with Max Holloway. So, and he looked good, So, and then for normal people like us, like fans who sit and analyze fighters and study fighting and just follow fighting, people speaking very highly of Conor McGregor. I mean, I saw a video with Daniel Cormier. This is all prior to losing to Nate Diaz. Daniel Cormier was, holding pads, and Conor McGregor was doing spinning back kicks, and he was saying, "Wow, how powerful that was." Daniel Cormier is saying that. Basically, Conor McGregor's fight strategy has always been, when he was on this whole tear, he's a great puncher. He's a great puncher, and he has great puncher, great movement, and perceived conditioning. Now this is where we're getting into strategy. Conor McGregor was very strategic in being very, very vocal about how conditioned he was. Remember, this is outside. We analyze watching his fights. Come in, throwing great punches, great movement. We can physically see that. Now, his conditioning is something that was more. We assumed how good his conditioning was based on him talking, hyping himself up, talking about how great his conditioning is, how he trains to go, he trains to fight 20 rounds or whatever he says, 200 rounds or 10 rounds. I train 10, however he put it. And seeing as that nobody's beating the guy, seeing how fast and furious he comes out in the first round when he's fighting, there's no reason that you wouldn't believe it. People were heavily influenced by him strategically. I would even say strategically intimidating. It's very intimidating. I mean, when you watch somebody, say you're Dennis Seaver going into a fight, and you go watch his previous fights, and the guy comes out with great movement, and he's very fast, very explosive, and shows absolutely no signs that he's going to tire, and just throwing heavy punches, hard punches, accurate punches. It's very difficult for a fighter to imagine anything else, and so when somebody is boasting of being in amazing physical condition, when you look at their performance, you have no reason not to believe them. And when you look at Conor McGregor's his physique, I mean, he sure looks the part, man. I mean, if anybody is fit as a fiddle, it's him. You have really no reason not to believe him. So it's very, Conor McGregor used intimidation, like vocal intimidation, not only as not so much, not only just calling people names. I mean, it's very intimidating. If you know you're going to go in, somebody who watched his first round fights, because all his fights, he knocks everybody out in the first round. And, even when you watch his fights in Cage Warriors, I mean, just destroying these guys. Doesn't show any signs of tiring. So, that's a very intimidating thing, So, like, say you're Dennis Seaver in the fight, and you're getting worked, and, in other words, if Dennis Seaver, and there's no reason in your mind, like Dennis Seaver, I'm just using him as an example. He's in the fight, and he hadn't seen Conor lose, and he's taking this onslaught. You know what I mean? If he thought that, oh, Conor's a normal human being and he's going to have to slow down, he's not going to be able to continue this pace, it makes it much easier. I would think it would make it much easier mentally to maybe move around and try and make it through it. But to think, man, this is the kind of condition that this guy's in, and he can just go and go and go. At this rate, I have no, as somebody fighting Conor, in your mind, you have no chance. You have no chance. You're like, I cannot compete with this. So, that being said, Nate Diaz going in to fight Conor, I believe the intimidation factor, not so much the conditioning, because Nate's in great shape, he can go and go, right? But Conor is just raging full on, this onslaught of punches, and I think Nate was a little bit hesitant. He's just like, wow. And I think it took some time in the octagon for Nate to realize that, he had to physically see it. I mean, Nate, basically, he had to physically see Conor starting to slow, and that's when he started to shine. And all through that time, Conor was landing punches and did contribute to, not Conor, but Nate was landing jabs and stuff, and I think did contribute to Conor getting tired. But basically, I do think it affected Nate Diaz. Nate was going in there with a guy that is basically just steamrolls everybody in the first round. So of course he's not going to be, as in there and as what would you say it as he's not going to look as confident. Nate Diaz is not going to look as confident going in there against somebody like that. That's very intimidating. That's really intimidating. This guy, and he's coming with punches, and basically, then Nate got to a point to where he physically saw it. Then he said, oh, look at this guy's getting tired. This guy's, or my punches are starting to affect this guy. Talking Nate's punches affecting Conor. So Conor's not going to have the intimidation factor anymore. And I believe even fighting other opponents, people are going to realize that, part of Conor's whole thing is he comes in there and goes all out in the first round of his fights. And people's just like are overwhelmed mentally because, they're not aware that he's going all out. You think, wow, this guy can just go like this. If it's a 5-round fight, I'm supposed to compete with this onslaught of punches. I can't compete with this. So in other words, mentally, if you're a Conor McGregor's opponent, if you only have to compete with that type of striking for 1 round, that is a much easier thing to face. In other words, if you go out there knowing, we know now. We know that Conor's going, yeah, I know Conor's probably going to, he's trying to get in better shape to keep up with what his mouth has been saying. But he has led us to believe, strategically, let everybody believe that that he could run that pace, that he could, he's mauling everybody in 1 round, and we've all just imagined in our heads that this guy can go for 5 rounds like that. Yeah, I mean, we would expect anybody to slow down a little bit, but we didn't realize the amount of energy that Conor was expending. I mean, doing all these crazy kicks. I mean, it's very entertaining, but that takes a lot out of you. And you can go watch some of Kung Lee's fights in Strikeforce. This is somebody who is conditioned to throw big kicks, heavy kicks is very effective. But you will see Kung Lee fade. I mean, I think fade's not the right word, but you see him slow down. I mean, it takes a lot out of you when you're throwing big kicks like that. And Kung Lee was, I mean, he knocked some guys out with his punches, but I mean, he was just known for throwing kicks. I mean, it was really cool to watch, and he was older too. But so anyway, Conor McGregor's kind of been exposed here. He's not going to have that intimidation. I mean, if Chad Mendes went in there, he's a little guy, but if Chad Mendes went in there and fight Conor, you know, although I do think Chad Mendes, I mean, I've actually watched that fight a number of times since Conor versus Chad Mendes, and man, he was taking, you know, those spinning back kicks that Cormier was talking about, or hit so hard, he was taking those right to the ribs, man. It was another reason Nate shouldn't stand with Conor, because Conor could literally crack one of Nate's ribs, or crack a couple of ribs, break them in half, you know, just, and that's going to be it. The fight's going to be over. So, I mean, that's scary stuff. You know, it really is. So, but anyway, this mental warfare, which is another reason the Diaz brothers are so mentally tough, doing, you know, crazy triathlons and running in the heat and cycling, you know, really long distance. You have to be really mentally tough. Believe me, I used to mountain bike, and man, we would ride for 6 hours, and there was times that we had expected to ride for like 3 hours. I had enough water, you know, maybe I had one extra protein bar with like extra power bar with me. We were only going to ride for 3 hours, and we got lost. We'd come out of the woods in the parking lot, and we thought we're by our car, and we're actually like 50 miles away. So, or 30 miles away from the car, and you're like, damn. You know, and like you know, mentally you thought you were done, and turns out, you know, it's getting hotter now. The sun's beating. We ran out of water, or almost out of water. You know, and you'd be surprised. I mean, mentally, and then you end up riding. You know, by the time we get back to the car, we end up being out there for 6 hours, and you know, up hills, and you know, breathing heavy, and you know, so mentally you deal with a lot, and that's just us mountain biking for fun. So you know, these guys doing this real extreme stuff, they don't break down as easily. You know, you just you prepare yourself for stuff like that when you're doing stuff. Like you even said, mountain biking, like we got lost and we ended up riding for 6 hours. Well, I mountain bike for 6 hours before, you know what I mean? Maybe we didn't plan on it that day, but you know what I mean? Mentally, it makes you more mentally tough. And I think that's one of Conor McGregor's strong points was his mental warfare and intimidation, and he had that going in the fight with Nate, and I think it did affect Nate. Nate was like, man, I hope I don't get knocked out, you know. And this guy as soon as he hits you, man, he knocks you out. And Nate's going to come in there more confident. He's going to be coming in more confident with a more, he's not going to be as intimidated. And I don't think he was as intimidated as a lot of other guys had been. So this has really been interesting with Conor McGregor. He's no longer going to have that mental warfare. I don't believe he'll have it against other fighters and getting under people's skin. I think people will start to realize that is more like he didn't get under Nate Diaz's skin. You know what I mean? Actually, Nate got under Conor's skin more. You know, you couldn't phase these guys, and I think there's a lot to be learned here. These guys are going to be facing Conor McGregor in the future. They're going to know he's just trying to get under their skin. They're going to know he's just talking what kind of shape he's in. He's in no better shape than a lot of these other guys. Does he hit harder? Does he still, you know? Yeah, he does. And Conor's a great fighter, but he's really lost the. This is really taking a hit to his. I mean, basically getting knocked out, getting submitted, You know what I mean? All in one fight. You know what I mean? And it's taken a big. It's going to take. It took a big hit at Conor McGregor's. I would say, fight style. It really has. I'll see you guys later.